up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In this video, we are going to be looking at the Detroit Lions' needs for the 2020 offseason. So the Detroit Lions have some needs at certain positions, and other positions they really don't need to address that much at all this offseason. So in this video, we are going to be ranking those needs by position. So let's get this started. So let's get this thing started. I actually came up with 10 positional groups. Now, I didn't include like punter or kicker. For both positions, I think kicker, we're good to go. I think Matt Prater is obviously Matt Prater. We're fine there. Punter, maybe. I don't know exactly what Sam Martin's future looks like, but I didn't really address that either. Kick returner, punt returner, I think Jamal Agnew is still that guy, and then obviously Danny Amendola can help out. But now let's get into, I guess you would say, the main positions, not the specialist positions. So let's start this thing off at number 10, and that is tight end. Look, tight end position I feel like shouldn't be much of a need. I know some people are looking at it like a big need. I don't think it should be. I don't know why it would be a need. You drafted a first-round tight end. You draft a first-round tight end, that should be that guy. You drafted a first-round tight end. You spent a boatload of money on Jesse James the last offseason. These guys should get more comfortable. They should get more involved in the offense this season. And I don't think there's any reason that there should be a need there. And if you're thinking about depth, we have depth. We have Logan Thomas, who played really well this last season, and we still have Isaac Nauta, who could potentially be on the roster, maybe not. I think we're fine. Maybe you add another player later on down the line for depth, but otherwise, I think we're good to go at the tight end position. I don't see this as much of a need at all. That's why it comes in number 10. All right, now hopping into number 9, this is a position where I think you can move it up and you can move it down. Some people may have this higher on their list. Some people may have it lower. For me, I have it lower, but I think you could definitely move up, and that is the running back position. So you may be a little surprised here. Some people are probably like, I'd have that way up there. For me, I'm not exactly sure where to put this one. Running back could be a need, maybe not a need. It's all really how you look at it. If you think that Kerryon Johnson can be here for the future and he's good to go, then you just need to give him less carries. Then I don't think running back is much of a need. But if you're saying, okay, we got to find a replacement for Kerryon Johnson, I think it's a pretty big need. Bo Scarborough, to me, looks like he could be the number 1 running back, but he's going to get a lot of time next season, so that's really one of our main guys. So I think we're good at that aspect. I think you can bring Kerryon back for another year. There's really you don't have to move on from Kerryon. And yeah, I think you could add a little bit of depth there, but you already have Ty Johnson, who I think will get even better. He can catch the ball in the backfield. Maybe you add a veteran type of running back. I'm telling you guys, there are some players that I'm liking. Yes, even though this is a pretty low in positional group, I think you can add a lot of help. And the reason it's so low is because I think other positions do need some help. You could definitely move this positional group up, actually. I think you could move this one way up if you wanted to. Some running backs I've been looking at is Jordan Howard, Derrick Henry. I'm looking at those more powerful young guys. If we added Derrick Henry, even though it's low on the list, that'd be fine. You could still add a beast running back because our running game isn't great. It's okay, but it's not great. So you could add a guy like that, and it would definitely change our entire offense. It comes in number 9, but really, honestly, don't take it too hard. You can move this way up the list. Coming in number 8, I have the safety position. Now, safety position mainly for depth here. At the starting safety position, we have Tracy Walker, who I completely believe is a really good safety, and he will continue to grow and get a lot better. And I think he's going to be a heck of a player for us very, very soon. And also Will Harris, who I don't think is bad, and he could be our starter next season as well. But I think it's the depth more for me here. Tavon Wilson, not exactly sure what his future looks like. He could be back with Lions. He may not be. I'm not sure. You could go get a veteran if you wanted to have someone start over Will Harris and then have Will Harris maybe sit a year or just get less, I don't know, snaps on the field, and that way he can learn a little bit from an older guy. You could do those things. Again, I don't think it's a super huge need. I think you do have some young talent here. Again, I just think veteran maybe. Possibly add a veteran safety, bring back Tavon. Those are your options. Maybe Killebrew. I don't know. That comes in at 8. Now let's hop into number 7 where I have the wide receiver position. Again, I'm not super worried about the wide receiver position. One guy I would bring back is Danny Amendola. When we're looking at these positional needs, we have to keep in mind that a lot of these guys aren't really technically on the team anymore, right? Danny Amendola is not really on the team unless we've re-signed him. And in my opinion, I think we have to re-sign him. So automatically you re-sign Danny Amendola in this situation. You have Marvin Jones, you have Kenny Galladay. You got a big 3 there that is absolutely phenomenal. And we saw it last season. They're still great. Obviously, Kenny Galladay is one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and he's still very young. Marvin Jones getting a little bit older, but he's not like Tom Brady age. He's still a heck of a wide receiver. So in my opinion, I think you could add a little bit of depth here. I do like what Marvin Hall did. I don't think you had to do tons. I think you'll wait a little bit. Maybe look for a guy when we drafted Travis Fulgham last season. Fulgham, I don't think he really lived up to it, but I don't know. He could be fine next season. He also didn't get a lot of chances on the field, and we saw that. He has the physique, right? He has the size to look like the next Marvin Jones or that kind of type of player, but we didn't really see much of him. So maybe you don't even address wide receiver position at all. However, the draft is very deep at the wide receiver spots. I wouldn't go top 3 rounds wide receiver, but I could see taking one at some point, maybe to kind of groom him into your next big name outside wide receiver, or possibly even your next slot, because Danny Amendola, yes, he's a really good player for us. He's not the youngest, and unless you want to put Marvin Hall in the slot for the future, which you definitely can, then you may have to start getting someone prepared to do that. And that comes in number 7. Now let's hop into number 6, where we have the cornerback position. And this is a huge maybe. Cornerback could range from number 6 all the way down to number 9, but running back is, or it could possibly range all the way up to like number 2 or number 1, honestly. And it really just comes down to what happens with Darius Slay. I kind of just try to put this one in the middle because I don't know what's going to happen. But depending on what happens with Darius Slay is going to affect where this moves. If Darius Slay's moved on from it, whether we trade him, we probably won't cut him. If we trade him, we get some picks. I don't know if we're going to get a cornerback in return. If we get rid of Slay, automatically, this is going to become a huge need because now you're rocking with Amani most likely as your number 1 and Justin Coleman as your slot. You have a pretty big hole there to fill on the outside. But if he comes back, now you have Amani, you have Slay, you have Coleman. You have your 3 main guys, in my opinion, still locked and loaded. You do have a little bit of depth in Michael Ford. You can add some depth for sure. That's, why it's kind of in the middle of the pack. So if you bring him back, I think you're fine. But if you don't bring him back, I could see the Lions going first round drafting a corner. I definitely could see Okudah on their board. I actually still see Okudah on their board, even though they may keep Darius Slay around, just for the simple fact that Matt Patricia likes to play defense. He likes to cover. Even though I think you need to get pressure, he likes to play coverage defense. And your defense coordinator was a secondary coach. So I definitely could see them looking at the cornerback position. But I don't think it's necessarily a huge need right now. And I don't think it's not a need at all. I think it really depends on what happens with Darius Slay. Now let's hop into the top 5. Coming in number 5, we have the backup quarterback position. I think this is actually a huge need. And not only the backup, but also the third string position. The backup quarterback position, in my eyes, should be a veteran. And I've talked about that this offseason, this past season. We didn't really address it, right? We didn't address the backup position very well. And you could tell we didn't really have a guy for when Matthew Stafford went down. We didn't have a lot back there. Jeff Driscoll and David Blau, they were both kind of developmental type of players, and they weren't ready to be a veteran backup, okay? And they didn't step in. They played okay. I didn't think Jeff Driscoll was terrible. I think we could have won a couple of games with him, but I still would like to see a veteran and then a developmental, whether it's those 2 guys or a new one. I definitely want to see one of those, that kind of thing happen this offseason. So I think that's super important to have a veteran behind him that knows, that has some experience, and then keep your developmental quarterback, hold 3 quarterbacks around, hold your 3, but keep a developmental guy that you can learn and possibly could be, your replace for Matthew Stafford down the road. That comes in at number 5. Now, hopping in number 4 is defensive tackle. There's just a lot of question marks here for it not to be this high. I have no idea what's going to happen with Damon Harrison, no idea what's going to happen with A'Shawn Robinson. With those 2 things in mind, that's why it's a huge need. If you lose out on both of these guys, it's automatically, in my eyes, probably number 1 on this list. Easily. It's probably not even debatable that this is number 1 if you lose out on both of those guys. Honestly, if you just lose out on one of them, it still could possibly be your biggest need because now you have a lack of depth. You're going to have guys like Kevin Strong trying to fill in there, and you're also not going to have a star, right? You still may not have a star. We know Snack's production just completely dropped off last season. A'Shawn has never been that great for us, so I can still see this being a higher need than even at number 4. Even if they both come back, honestly, you could still use a lot of depth here. You could use a young talent. We've looked at some really good players. Obviously, we know Derek Brown is going to be sitting there at a draft spot. He would be a heck of an athlete to put at the defensive tackle position. You also have guys like Chris Jones in free agency. We have Javon, which I signed on my Madden rebuilding. So there's a lot of options out there for defensive tackle, but I think it's a big need, and it could be even more of a big need depending on what happens with those 2 players. Into number 3, we have offensive line. I think offensive line is really overlooked, but it's a huge need this offseason. A lot of question marks, just like number 4. Graham Glasgow. It's hard to do these when we don't know what's going to happen with these players, but right now, when you look at the guard position, Graham Glasgow's future looks up for grabs. Honestly, I'm leaning to the side where I don't think they'll bring him back. I want to bring him back. Don't get that twisted, but I don't know if they actually will bring him back. So, the right guard position is a question mark. The left guard position, we run the whole, substitutions, I guess. How do I say it? We have that little rotation going. We had it with Kenny Wiggins and Joe Dahl, but Kenny Wiggins is going to be a free agent, so I don't know if we'll bring him back. We definitely could for depth. And then the offensive tackle position, Rick Wagner, he's getting older. He's definitely not the same player. I don't know what you're going to do here. You don't have to replace Rick Wagner this offseason, but I think you have to get a really good guard to help out, potentially to be a next starter for either the left guard or the right guard position, especially if you lose out on Graham Glasgow. Even if you don't, adding depth is huge, possibly finding a different left guard to start. I love Joe Dahl, but, you could add a beast there. And really, I think offensive tackle, it makes sense to either go get a guy that can replace him now or get a guy that can groom to become that next offensive tackle because you have to be prepared because I can almost guarantee you he will be hurt at one point in time this season. Coming in at number 2, could be number 1 easily, is the linebacker position. Now, I'm focusing on both inside and outside. Didn't even need to separate these 2. Inside linebacker position, potentially is a huge need. Okay, I love Jelani Tavai. I think he's fine. He's set. Jared Davis, still have a lot of questions about Jared Davis. I know he's sort of young, but he can't cover very well. And on the outside, we have the same situation. We don't have guys that can cover. We don't have linebackers that can cover, but yet we drop everybody into coverage. That's not a good thing. Okay, that's a recipe for disaster, right? And then obviously Jared Davis, he whiffs when he goes for sacks. So I think in that case, you need coverage linebackers. I think that's what you have to focus on this offseason, to getting guys that can cover. Obviously, the biggest name out there in the draft is Isaiah Simmons that could do that, and I think he would be perfect for us in the defense we love to play. That's why it comes in at number 2. And finally, coming in number 1 is edge rushers. Again, you could put the top 3, 4 really anywhere. You can move all these around. I wouldn't even be mad if you said defensive tackle number 1, because I think it is that big of a need. I want edge rushers because really what Bob Quinn had to say this offseason about you can never have enough edge rushers and that we need to get more edge rushers. The Lions had only 28 sacks this season. They didn't get a lot of pressure. I think there's definitely different things going to it. I think it's players and scheme and injuries. There's 3 big factors that go into it. I don't know exactly which one is the heaviest factor right now. I don't know what the problem was exactly last season. I mean, some people want to say it's coaching. Some people want to say it's just players. Some people want to say it's just injuries, which I think is a mixture of all of those things. So not only do you need to add some depth, which you need to have some more depth back there, because yes, you do on paper have a lot of guys, but at the same time, they're all getting injured. So what does that really mean? Mike Daniels is a huge guy to keep an eye on. He's going to be gone most likely this offseason, in my opinion. So I think defensive line as a whole, whether it's defensive tackle or edge, could be at number 1. So don't even take this list too seriously and be like, oh, I disagree with you. You're completely wrong. Look, man, you could put defensive tackle number 1. You could put edge number 1. As a whole, defensive line is, in my eyes, the biggest thing that we need to address this offseason. Let me just keep it like that. The front 7, honestly, is the biggest thing we need to address. Linebackers, the defensive line needs to be fixed. That's how I look at it this offseason. I love the other positions. I think they're helpful. I think you could definitely have some help there, especially offensive line. I love the trenches. For me, it's trenches. Front 7 and the old line. That's really what it comes down to. Fix those 2 things, and I think we'll be a way better team. And I know that's way easier said than done. But on the edge rusher side of things, we do have some depth, but you could add some star talent to go with Trey Flowers, who played really, really well last season. You could add some star power across from him, because a lot of guys, in my eyes, are just solid players. Devon Kennard was really good. I think he had a pretty good season. But you do have some solid players that aren't star players. You have Romeo Okora, Austin Bryant, whose history, you don't know what he's going to look like. I don't think we're going to see Mike Daniels back. So in that case, I think front 7 as a whole is probably our biggest need, and then offensive line. Let me hear your thoughts, comments below. Thank you, for watching, and I'm out.